Hi there, Ranger Green here. Let us proceed. There's much more to be said about the past timelines. I think, or at least I hope, that I, to the best of my abilities, have covered that in the YouTube podcasts and YouTube videos I have uploaded on the Whole Academy YouTube channel, as well as the Higher Order Density 1 Work YouTube channel, as well as within the perception logs 1 to 6, which you can get access to on the Whole Academy website, as well as the Whole Academy course material and the free material that are accessible also on the Whole Academy website. This has been a very large amount of work. It's a corpus of work, a huge body of work that I have done to complete the fourth cycle to the degree I remember it and as I see and remember it was supposed to be completed as part of the restoration program and as part of the reseeding that happened after the fall of Atlantis. That leaves the fifth cycle groups that were part of Atlantis. As we know, Atlantis fell. And that means that quite a lot of the ones that were part of the fifth cycle in Atlantis were reseeded back into the fourth to learn how to be amicable, be empathic, understanding others, and learn to work as a group within teams. This has, of course, been distorted into the tribal communities and the tribal mindset that goes with more or less structures of hive mind that have been adapted to match some of the regressed races and their technologies. So, I've got a lot on my mind, but there is so much that needs to be said and so much that should not be said. And this is the discernment between what is fruitful to share and what is not fruitful to share. What creates the incentive to do the work and what blocks the incentive to do the work. There are obstacles on the path. There are definitely obstacles on the addition to our spiritual journey or to the spirit sciences, where we again understand that spirit is knowledge often associated with the fifth cycle, whereas the spirituality often is associated with the vibrational field and the development of the heart as an inclusive, empathic, compassionate, and understanding modality that adapts, transforms, and upgrades our emotional field into align itself with the vibrational field and the original configuration of the fourth cycle that were to bridge the oppositions, transform the oppositions, and lift them into the next cycle, the fifth cycle, where we again could learn to collaborate, humans and humanoids, within the sphere of understanding, calm recognition, and the rules of engagement. For that, we had the principles. For that, we had the rules of engagement. And for that, we had the natural laws of energy. I've talked extensively about that in the transition science courses 1 to 7, as well as the advanced clearing work course 1 to 4, as well as the template science courses 1 to 4. We are facing new challenges. And our world is in transition. It is moving out of the fourth cycle. The technologies are collapsing. The reality programs are too distorted. We could say they have got too much viruses incorporated into them. They are dysfunctional. They no longer work as they're supposed to. The software is outdated. Whatever analogy you would like to use. The timelines connected to these are also collapsing. The races that used to administer them have left. What's left are the ones that cannot move on. And they are not particularly in the high end of what we could say the technological or the committed or the inclusive agenda. They are prone to service to self. That's some of the obstacles that we have. However, we recall that one of the main themes of the fourth cycle was to unify oppositions, transform oppositions. Oppositions are not polarity. Oppositions are the horizontal between heart to heart, whereas the polarity is the upside down, or down to top, or top to down, or upside down if you like, from brain to body. And that's the vertical line of progression that we are entering into. After we have learned the heart to heart and reconnected and understood how we can work together in our diverse bodies, ideas, agendas, consciousness configurations, and whatever we have, and we have learned to collaborate as a community that works for the highest good of the many, to raise the potentials of this reality field to its highest holographic energetic units, from where all progression can continue within this reality field, and not the opposite, that will lead to regression, entropy, distortion, and fall into the abyss. We are on the edge. We have been on the edge for a very long time. So, those of us who came in with the mission statements, as I said, and as I claim, we did not come to save anybody. Nobody can save anybody. But we can show the way. We can be forerunners. We can be role models. We can be pioneers. We can be inventors. And we can be the ones that takes the machete and cut away the weed, whatever's there that stands in the way, via our sharp discernment abilities and the core essence of the understanding of the higher order sciences. Now, many have conflated the higher order sciences with the spiritual sciences, the sciences of the soul. But the soul is, as we recall, the Greek word for the psyche is the Greek word, which we have translated into the soul. However, we also understand that the soul is just the inner human, as it is rightfully translated in Greek. Psyche means inner human. And on top of that one, there was the knowledge that were connected to the stars. The Stoics thought that the psyche and the body would dissolve, sometimes getting caught in this world as restless souls. But those who had developed the next level, nous, true gnosis, true knowledge, would dissolve the lower form of them, the psyche and the body, and then the rest would lift up to the stars, like a little glitter, like a little spark, and there become part of the stars, of the ancient ones, of those who had gone before them, of the wise ones, of the sages. Now, if we go with the idea that that is part of the fifth cycle understanding, adapted or distorted to the mentality of the philosophers in the antique Greek communities, and we then say, well, the high-level distortion clearly was at stake or was in play in these times, what we could say before year zero, where the new timelines were inserted, to put it that way. However, again, this is not where I want to go. Just putting it in there for you to look up and to study on your own, so you have the span of time and understand that ideas that we have the potentiality to reach for the stars were part of the ancient cultures as well, but not the way we perceive it, but how they saw it as part of their cultural settings, as well as their psychological structures, as well as what was talked about and adhered to within their social cultural systems. Now, those of us who came in from the future or from other adjacent realities, or as part of other of the programs that attempted to support, rebuild, reconstruct, and undo the effects of Atlantis and what led to the reseeding of the ones that were stuck inside its reality to be reseeded as part of the fourth cycle. Others took off long before the timelines began to collapse, before the reality field got inverted and got dark light coding instead of the true progressive light coding. The ones that got stuck were reseeded. It was a decision made by the councils, including the humanoids and the solar rishis. So many of the ones that are stuck in here, forgotten who they were, got stripped of their fifth cycle potentiality because it had got dark lighted and had become inverted, and their radiation field were no longer granting, emitting, exploring, investigating, but were taking, inverting, nullifying, annihilating the radiation field of others. And it was therefore deemed necessary to remove this layer of their trinity structure. Some of these, unfortunately, did never get the potentiality to rebuild it and became the two fields. These are the ones that, in their anger, because they forgot what had happened, and since they were already on the path of entropy and dark light coding, made into a history or a story within themselves or a narrative that this had been done to them, that they were the victims. In my opinion, the only true victims are the ones that suffered from the timeline event where they got their light codes inverted and changed, not because of their choices, but because someone tampered with the science labs in the Sirian systems. There we can talk about victimization. Something was done to others they did not ask for. The ones on our planet that used to be part of Atlantis, they made their own bed. They made their own choices that led to the fall or the collapse of the timelines of Atlantis that were supporting that reality field. And with that collapsing, that fifth cycle. Too many races were too eager to be part of that project, and too many of them had dark light coding. It was inevitable. So reseeding was the only option. That was the second chance. And that second chance got changed into hostility, because that was the foundation of them to begin with. They have not mastered the reconnection, the empathy, the inclusivity, and the understanding of others. They are stuck still within their own understandings of who and what they are and what they perceive themselves to be, often as superior or someone who knows more than the rest of us. Nobody has the full picture. We have our own personal history. We have the narrative of who and what we perceive ourselves to be, which is changeable and should be changeable as we adapt and grow and progress. So should our perception of who and what we are adapt and progress and develop. Most of these groups of the inverted factions, they can't. They lost the ability to progress. So they regress or digress. You choose yourself. So what was the point of the mission statements of the fifth cycle, fifth root race, or actually sub-root race of the original fifth root race that was seeded at the time of Atlantis? That was to give an infusion of the original fifth cycle capacities. We had different groups from different realms connected to this solar system that pulled out when Atlantis was beginning to show signs of 30% viability rate that was now or had been inverted. So the massive plan was from these different groups to reseed humans that would hold a radiation field that were not in alignment or similar to the original one that fell, but were dissimilar, that would be able to work both in opposition, also having the understanding of redoing the cycles in a fast pace so that everything would be quickly run through, reintegrated, updated to the current version of reality, and by that begin to do the work of the fifth cycle. But now within the constitution and the architecture of our world as it had turned out here in this generation. And when I say this generation, I mean the last 100 years. As we also know, things did not play out exactly as it was intended. And again, there is more here that could be said and more to be investigated, including my own history, as well as what I came to do. And if I even am part of the fifth cycle statements, mission statements, if I even have that, or if that's something that has been imbued into me as part of some of the attempts to develop a gene code sequence that could be replicated and inserted into another form that is not and will not be my own. There are questions that must be asked in this work. I do strongly suggest that you look back into the material that was produced in the 1980s, in the 1990s, in the 2000s, and onward, and look into how was it perceived, the indigos, how were they perceived, the crystal children, how were they perceived, the ideas, the hopes, whatever people talked about in the ascension communities back then, and how that changed as we approached 2012, and how it changed after 2012. I remember in 2013, where the dark grids really became visible. They were being fueled clearly by the dark galactic core or parallel systems that were trying to reconnect the dark galactic core to our system. Why? Because that dark galactic core were here at the time of Atlantis. Was it removed then as part of the reseeding? Yes. Did it come back in 2017? Yes. It is now connected again to our reality field. Where does that put us that have the fifth cycle mission statement? Some came in to fuel and fuse with the fourth cycle dynamics to recreate the original fourth cycle progression dynamics as well as evolutionary cycles. Others came in with the fifth cycle to fuse what we could say the original network that belonged to the configuration before the times of Atlantis. None of this was supposed to be easy. Which mission ever is? Just look at your life in general. Life is not easy. Life is challenging. It is built upon processes of development and processes of non-development and processes where we regress. We learn, we strive, we grow, and we fall back, and we begin all over again. The way we approach life depends on our narratives of self, others, and reality. The way we cope with obstacles depends on our narratives. And it depends on our experiences and how we deal with our experiences. How resilient we are in dealing with our experiences and what we derive from them. Not just glossing them over and saying, well, I learned from this. Yes, we learn from everything. But do we learn to such a degree that we change and reconfigure our biocodes? Do we learn and integrate that learning process so it changes our vibrational field? Does it transform our emotional field into its highest potentialities and reconnect with the vibrational field? So we activate the higher order architecture of energy that is behind our physical form. And since most of us that are doing this work have the understanding of what the vibrational field should be used for to amplify the holographic energy systems in ourselves and in our reality, to vibrate up the timelines so that they can be cleared or transformed. What is of the past and the present are naturally in opposition and should either be upgraded via transformation or let go of via transmutation. So those who have the fifth cycle capacity, for them it's easier to dive into the radiation field and learn how to transmute. Learn how to work with flames that are the light codes imbued with the upgraded types of genetics that creates life force and alters the old holographic energetic units of the third cycle, transforms and upgrades the ones of the fourth cycle, and align them with our holographic energetic architecture of the fifth cycle, where the biofield itself no longer is a field, but becomes a very intrinsic, beautiful light pattern, which is often been referred to as the cup of light, the etheric field, the biofield, the light code field that is capable and able of holding the fifth cycle configuration. The vibrational field will change as well. It will upgrade into true light, which is not just light as vibration. It turns into light that becomes a field in itself, like a sun, like a transformative field that can radiate as well. Radiate in concentric circles. And in that joint light configuration, radiation, light code vibrational field, the true capacities of the higher order mind, the radiation field with the true knowledge and the true understanding of the fifth cycle capacities of consciousness can be unfolded into what later on will be seen as and can be aligned with what we understand as plasma. Will we then be walking around light bodies inside this reality? No. But our holographic energetic architecture will work in dissimilar ways. It can warm up, it can cool down, it can expand, it can contract, it can work in all sorts of ways and connect to all sorts of collective information systems, as well as individual information systems. It can transform, it can transmute, it can amplify, it can imprint, it can create something entirely new. It works under the laws of synergy. And from that, we can expel what is no longer of use and amplify what is of use. And that's part of the radiation field and what it can do. The discernment is not just like a sword. It's a flame sword. It cuts loose what is no longer of what we can no longer use. But it can also cut things and transmute them from where whatever is cut loose will disintegrate and cease to exist. What is left can then be upgraded by amplification, but this amplification must be done via the true understandings of rules of engagement, the principles, and the natural laws of energy that governs our reality field. From this, we understand that what we choose to look at, what we choose to amplify, does not grow because we want it to. It grows because it has the potentiality for it. And because the purpose and function of what we look at and what we participate in and what we choose to amplify has the progression rate and the potentiality, the viability rate already from where it can unfold its next level of potentials. So it is by our work and what we do as forerunners and pioneers and adapters of our original energy system. It is via the work we do with our fields. It is the work we do in clearing our timelines. It is all the new type of light codes that we build in via our experiences in the other realms that ignites and unfolds what is hidden potential in other people. We do not do it by our words. We do not do it by our teachings. We do it by who we are and what we turn ourselves into and how we choose to work with our energy systems. That is what it means to be a role model. We exemplify it. We live by our word. We live by our actions. We walk the talk. We enter the stream. We unfold it into our everyday lives. We implement it. We become it. And that's how we're going to change the world. So for me, that is what the fifth cycle mission statement is. And that's how it should work. We can choose to take on tasks. We can choose to become teachers or diplomats or policymakers or business owners or whatever we choose. It is, like everything else, part of this reality. It's part of the physical world. But what really matters is how we work with our energy system, how we choose to transform the holographic energetic units of the third cycle, how we use to upgrade and vibrate up our holographic energetic units of the fourth cycle, and how we choose to align with, unfold the potentials of, and continue the progression journey with the fifth cycle light coding, creating the original expanded mind field, aligning it with the original expanded vibrational field, and with that begin the next set of work that will go with transforming the physical level of this reality and aligning it to its original holographic energetic network, from where the remains of the astral barrier, the remains of the frequency fence, and the remains of the timeline event will cease to exist, fall away, and build the bridge into the true worlds, the true realities, the true holographic energetic configuration of the worlds that exist around us, from which we are currently cloaked and cannot see. They can barely see us as we are covered in distortion energies, and we can definitely not see them as we are still aligned with some of the old programs, the prohibiting technology, and the limited scope of reality that we have been re-engineered to only perceive. So for now, this is what I would like you to ponder upon. It's not about what we do. It's not about just what we say, words have a huge impact. It is, of course, about what we think, what we feel, and how well we take care of our own body, how well we choose to progress and develop our emotional field into the vibrational field, how much we try to work with sciences, systems of thoughts, learning how to discern, learning how to develop and progress, learning how to dive into and research, and learn what to keep and what to discard, what to transform and what to transmute, and what to upgrade and what we choose to upgrade. What is it that the future will need? That's the question that we are here to figure out. Most of us have been oriented towards the past. How do we reorient ourselves into the future of humanity, where a true mission statement was supposed to unfold? How do we get there? How do we begin this work? How do you begin this work? And what are the questions you need to ask yourself to begin this work? Many have begun the fourth cycle work with the existential questions. Who am I? What am I? Why am I here? And with that, we take into the next level of sciences. What are my capacities? What is the true nature of reality? And where do I fit in between my capacities, the true nature of reality, and the synergetic effect that these two oppositions should lead to, so that we complete the spatial features of the third cycle, getting to the understanding of unifying consciousness and energy, but within the settings of the highest good of the many. Then we move into the fourth cycle and unify that, implement that into our Trinity structure, where we learn to work with the vibrational field and the amplification dynamics, again, for the highest good of the many, but this time as part of the universal lineages, as part of this reality field, as part of the original holographic energetic architecture of the universal structures of the 12 main cycles, the grand cycles. And to truly reach the point where we understand how reality works, we begin to align with our radiation field and unfold the true sciences of reality, the higher order sciences of reality. And this is the work that we're here to do. And this is what we need to embark on. Thank you.